Divorce is one of the most challenging transitions in life, and without the right guidance, it can quickly turn into a disaster. Welcome to Dodging Divorce Disasters, the show that helps you navigate the legal, financial, and emotional pitfalls of divorce before they happen. In each episode, I sit down with a top professional in the divorce community to hear real-life war stories, cautionary tales from the trenches of divorce. But I won't leave you with just the horror stories. The experts will break down exactly what went wrong and, more importantly, how you can avoid making the same mistakes. Whether you're in the early stages of separation, deep in the process, or supporting someone through it, we are here to help you move forward with clarity, confidence, and fewer regrets. I'm your host, Lori Hawkins, and I am a local expert in divorce real estate. I am so excited to be sharing these incredible professionals with you. Let's dive in. I am so excited today to have Robyn Hazel with me. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Lori. Thank you. I'm so appreciative to be here today.
Well, I can't even remember. We met through Greg,
We
which
did.
we'll get into who Greg is in a minute. But I think I have like a certain tingling in my system today because you work as a forensic accountant. And my background, I have a degree in accounting. So I am very interested in hearing what you have to say. The more I hear about what you do, I think, "Oh, I should have been a forensic accountant." But I'm just going to let you just kind of tell us who you work for, the company name, and maybe just a little bit. A lot of our listeners may not even know what a forensic accountant is.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for the great introduction. I think you did a nice job with that. But I'm a forensic accountant and valuation expert with over 15 years of experience. And I lead the family law engagements at my firm, Reagan FVL. Our firm is a boutique litigation support firm that serves clients across the Southeast, but we also have clients across the country. We have a couple on the West Coast as well, so we can serve clients elsewhere. I hold a certified divorce financial analyst certification, and I'm a certified valuation analyst. But I'm also a single mom of two young girls. So I understand firsthand the emotional weight that the financial decisions carry during divorce.
Yes. Okay, interesting. I did not know that you guys went outside because you're located in Charlotte.
We are.
In Charlotte, correct?
We are. Yes.
But you can travel outside that area to work on cases.
Correct. So our certifications they're national. So the rules and methodologies that we employ when we do our work are recognized across the United States. So particularly in business valuations, we can value a business as long as it's a part of the United States. We can do that anywhere.
Okay. And a forensic accountant, when I think of a forensic accountant, I think of someone hiding money.
Mhm.
And that's, they hire you to go in to dig deep and to find things that may not be on the surface. But you just mentioned business evaluations.
Mhm.
What does a forensic accountant actually do?
Well, our firm in particular, we do more than just divorce work. So to your point, forensic accountants, I'd say that the easiest way to explain it is if it involves money and you think something's wrong, then call us because that's what we do. We figure out what's going on and try to make sense if anybody's doing something nefarious or mischievous with the numbers. That's what we do.
But business evaluations, that's needed during a divorce too, right?
Correct. So many couples that are looking at divorcing, one or both may be business owners of a small, closely held business. And the business can be one of the largest, if not the largest assets that they have to figure out how much it's worth when they're dividing up the property. So that's why having a proper business valuator take a look at it and assess the value of the business is so critical because people tend to do it incorrectly and it can cost them thousands of dollars.
Wow. Okay. Well, before we get into the meats and potatoes of what this podcast is all about, I always like to talk about a fun fact, and I love yours. Yours is kind of twofold. Number one, you play the violin. And from what I understand, that is a very difficult to learn. It's difficult to learn how to play.
It is. I don't even remember when I started. My parents got me lessons, I think, when I was a toddler. But when I started in grade school, I didn't play it. So I had like a year or two when I was really young, but I took it up again when I grew up in North Carolina, and here in the public schools at the time, you had to choose doing band, chorus, or orchestra in middle school. So at that time, I picked up the violin again because I had one. And another fun fact that I just thought of is the violin that I play is actually my great grandfather's violin. So it's a family heirloom, and we had a violin, and I just decided, let me get back into it. And so I played all through college. I actually stopped after I graduated college and then began working full time. I didn't play it for years, and it's only been in the last year that I've since tried to get back into it, which is why I'm so excited about, dusting it off and getting back to something I love. I joke with people, and here today I'd say, when I'm not poring over financials, I play my violin.
Now, are your children interested in it?
Interestingly, not yet. They've vacillated. So my older daughter, she's trying to learn the guitar, but is realizing it is very challenging to learn an instrument. My younger daughter, she's only 6. So when I've played, she's like, oh, I think I'd like to play. And I'm like, okay, we'll investigate it. But then the next day it's like, oh, never mind. So we'll see. She's got time. She's so young that I think she's got a lot of time to make up her mind.
Yeah, that's a cool instrument to know how to play though, because everyone can't do that.
Yeah.
Guitars, pianos, they're hard to learn too, but a
Hmm.
lot of people, that seems to be what they gravitate to, and the violin, not so much. So that's kind
Yeah.
of cool. And you also said that you lived in London for 2 years.
Yeah.
How'd that occur?
So that was back from 2016 to 2018. And it was so my ex-husband's employer at the time moved us abroad. And it was an incredible experience because at the time we only had one child, which is my oldest daughter, and she was 2 years old when we moved. But we had an incredible experience. I loved living in London. It's one of my most favorite places on earth. And I would welcome the opportunity to go back anytime.
I know. I have never been to London, but my daughter has, and she loved it. She spent a summer over there and she loved it. So I
Yeah.
can see. I can see. All right. So the real reason that I do this podcast is for everyone that is an expert in some area of divorce to share their craziest divorce story, which we all have them, but then to help our listeners know what they could do differently to dodge this divorce disaster
Mm.
so they don't have to go through it. So do you have one, a story that you can tell us and then give us tips on how to dodge this divorce disaster?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I've got lots. And I mean, most of the work I do, I feel like these poor individuals, they're going through the disaster of divorce, which is why they bring us in. There's something not right with the numbers, and they need an expert to sort it out. I'd say the craziest case I've encountered so far in this work was actually a child support modification. So the divorce was done, but we had to trace over 22,000 transactions across 6 bank accounts and 6 credit cards to prove a parent's real income. So I think the lesson in that case was that, the transactions don't lie, even if the individual is trying to claim no income. So be transparent or expect someone like me to find the breadcrumbs. And in that case, it also boiled down to documentation. So in divorce, you're going to encounter that you have to have evidence, you have to have proof, you have to have documents to figure out what assets are available, what debts are there that have to be divided up. If it's child support, child custody, you have to have documentation about everything. And I like to joke with people, documentation's like pizza. Even when it's not great, it's something, but when it's good, it's amazing. So I'd say that strong records will cut your legal fees, they'll cut your stress, and they will strengthen your case.
I'm just sitting here thinking, actually wondering how many people just accept what is said to them and do not want to spend the extra money for someone like you to come in and dig deeper and find that pot of gold?
hmm I think a lot. No studies have been done, no polls have been done, but I would suspect a lot. Unfortunately, divorce gets very expensive. And I do believe that people burn out. It's not even necessarily about fighting, but to your point, it's how much is the juice worth the squeeze? And people get scared. And I would just encourage people to stop living in fear and think about the truth. And yes, it may cost you another $10 or $20,000 really dive into things between us and your attorney, but it could help bring up, you might save hundreds of thousands of dollars. We even found millions of dollars in one case for a client, and she was blown away. She she was just like, "Whoa." I mean, it's unbelievable sometimes what's being hidden, and you don't know what you don't know. So how do you make the best decision for yourself if you don't have good information at your hands, right?
Now, this may be a crazy question, perhaps, but do your cases kind of tend to be on the more wealthy people? Because they are actually trying to find large sums of money? Because would it be cost effective for someone to hire you and yes, you may find $25,000 that you didn't know they may not have known about, but would $25,000 be cost effective?
That's a great question, Lori. So I'll first say that most of the individuals that hires are actually the attorneys. So what I tell people is work with your attorney. They're sort of your captain of your ship through divorce, right? So if you don't have an attorney, get an attorney or at least get a consult, right? Because if you don't have a lot of money, to your point, you may not need our resources. We may not be something that you need to leverage. But that's why even getting a consult with an attorney, they'll give you the information that you need for your case because everybody's circumstances are different. When we get brought in, it's because an attorney has evaluated the case and made the decision that the juice would be worth the squeeze by bringing us in. Not all of our clients have a ton of money. We do get brought in by attorneys just to value a business. It may not be to uncover any hidden money or hidden assets. It could just be, hey, the wife has her own, company. We need to get a value on this so we know how much to put on the equitable distribution affidavit, right? We're going into mediation. We don't want to just throw a number out there. We need to know, have an idea of truly what this is worth. We do get brought in. I'd say it's a mix. Most of our clients probably aren't super wealthy. Say, they're typically small business owners going through divorce, or it's the spouse of a small business owner going through divorce. Occasionally, we will get a wealthier client that says, "Yeah, I think I don't know. I didn't manage the finances. I don't know what we have. I need help figuring that out." But it is a mix of clients. So that was a great question.
That's a really good point, though, is that the attorney kind of helps them or guides them as to whether or not they may need your services. So that's a really good point. Getting a consultation with an attorney, I cannot stress that enough. I say all the
Mhm.
time, and I think you just said it a second ago, you just don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And when it comes to family law, they know. We all have our lines of expertise, and I am just finding more and more. the deeper I get into this whole divorce niche, that there are so many experts out there
Hmm.
that it is worth the money to at least speak to one of them and see what they can do so that you can make a knowledgeable decision on whether their services would be worth. I know that there's a lot of cost. I've been through a divorce. I know it's expensive, but sometimes it's worth having that guidance. And I didn't know that. I
Hmm.
wish I had had these videos. I could have dodged a lot of divorce disasters myself if I had heard and known all of this that I know now.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I like to
Um,
think also that, you touched on something. A lot of people, I don't know why they're reticent to go meet with an attorney, but everybody kind of divorce culturally, I think, has this, oh, it's like snowflakes. From a distance, they all look the same. But when you really look at each snowflake, they're all unique and everybody's case is different. And even small businesses are the same thing. I've noticed this. I joke with people that, if you valued one like family owned business, you value one family owned business. Even if you get the exact same type of business for another valuation engagement, it could be completely different because all of the nuances in the cases and the engagements and the numbers, they're all different. So it's so important to get that guidance from an attorney and the other professionals. You're absolutely right.
and I am finding too that the stigma of, maybe not stigma, maybe that's not the right word, but when someone is contemplating a divorce, the first person they automatically think about is hiring an attorney. And I understand that. That's what I did. But sometimes an attorney is perhaps not the first person you should go to, because there are so many professionals out there that can almost help you find the right attorney, because
Yeah.
every attorney is not the same. I'm not even talking about their ability to practice law. I'm just talking about collaborative. I'm talking about litigation. I'm talking about
Hmm.
mediation, arbitration. There's
Right.
so many things that I did not know anything about, except I just needed to hire an attorney. Did I know all these different kind of attorneys existed? So I feel like that's just another reason, pointing back to what you do, that there's a reason for you to be brought in, and you can help people save a lot of money or find a lot of money or help with the business evaluations. But that's good that you work with the attorneys, because they, like you
Hmm.
said, they kind of bring you in.
Hmm.
Okay. I there's so many good things that I want you to cover. You mentioned some common financial mistakes to avoid
Hmm.
in divorce. Tell us about that.
Well, where to start, right? It's like divorce is really I mean, marriage, the modern day concept of marriage is all about love and trust. And I think that is a beautiful thing. But inherently, marriage is just another business arrangement. That's why you have usually two attorneys that have to unravel it, right? So there's a lot of financials involved. And so one of the biggest things I've seen is ignoring taxes. The tax implications of divorce get overlooked. $100,000 in assets is not $100,000 after tax necessarily. And a poorly structured settlement can really shrink when it comes tax time. So that's the first thing I mentioned because a lot of people forget that. You're just looking at numbers on a page and, who gets the house or who gets this bank account, or who gets that retirement account. But there's tax implications to all these things. There's also tax advantages when you go through a life event like divorce that people probably aren't aware of. So you can avoid penalties, for example, in divorce if you needed to take a draw on your 401k due to the event of divorce. So there's a lot of different things that we can help guide you through, but ignoring taxes is one of the things we see a lot. The second thing we see, and this is probably a lot of my work, we have a lot of cases on this, commingling funds. And what I mean by that is if you have separate property, in North Carolina, separate property could be property that you have prior to marriage that when you get married, you still have, or it's an inheritance you received. It could be a gift from, a parent, for example, that they intend only for their child. If separate property gets mixed into a joint account, for example, you may need a forensic like myself to unscramble the egg, and that gets very costly. So, most people, this is something to ask attorneys about. If you have what you think is separate property, how did you handle it? Uh, if you want it to remain separate, you got to keep it separate. The other thing we see that's a mistake during divorce is under documenting your cash flow. There's something I like to call SIDS. It's called sudden income deficit syndrome, where one spouse, an earning spouse, for example, was Laura had significant income and, oh, divorce happens and all of a sudden, no, I, I don't have any income. It's just disappeared. It's gone. It's gone. Everything's gone bad. We see that all the time. I call it SIDS. So people can hide, whether it's Venmos, Cash Apps, businesses hide a lot of personal income. And the courts now expect that that gets unraveled. And that's why we get brought in a lot. Just be transparent. Don't underdocument. It's going to cost you a lot more in the long run. And then also fighting over small dollars, like fighting over that $20 blender. Legal fees can really get dwarfed. I mean, that email to your attorney is going to cost more than just going out and buying a new blender. So I say, like, pick your battles, right?
That is exactly right. I see this all the time with repairs on a home. There
Yeah.
might be a $500 repair that a buyer is asking, and it would be 250 for each of them, and one of them is just bent that they are not going to do that, and they need to speak to their attorney. And I try to tell them it's gonna cost you more than $250 to get time with your attorney to discuss this and get them involved. It would be better just to go ahead and do it. So, I
Yeah.
think that's the emotion of the divorce. Everyone's nerves are at the top, and so I
Yeah.
understand that. I
Yeah.
understand that. Well, you also talked about how business owners and their spouses can prepare for the valuation process. This is
Yes.
interesting. What
And
can
I
you
am
do
so
there?
glad you asked this because this is what my firm we discuss in house a lot about what we wish people would know. And first of all, documents, organize the basics. So even if you're the business owner, you have access to all these documents. If you're the spouse, before I would encourage people before you take action in a divorce, try to gather as much documentation as you can, meaning ideally we like to get the last 5 years tax returns. We like the profit and loss statements and balance sheets for the last 5 years, general ledgers. That's where we identify if there's personal expenses being paid by the business, if there's anything we need to normalize. General ledgers are huge for our work. And then any information on the customers or competitors and the owner's roles and responsibilities, all of those are critical to valuing the business. So, again, it goes back to that documentation, organize the basics. If you're the business owner, be honest about the perks you're taking. It's okay. That's why you have a business. You should be getting some perks, but people get really cagey about what's going on. And in the end, it costs more because we're going to see it. We're going to see things in your numbers and we're going to have questions. So just be honest with us because it'll save you in the long run from us spending time like finding it on our own. And then expect that we are going to make some adjustments. So we do take out one time expenses or income. For example, in COVID, a lot of people had government loans, right, that got forgiven, COVID loans. Those get added back or removed, for example, from the income stream of the business. But we also adjust for the owner's compensation. And we found that people are surprised by that a lot because they take it personally. It's not personal. We just have to make these adjustments to get, a value on your business of what it would do without these discretionary items or one-time items. And then a timeline reality check is what I would tell people. It can take a month or two to value the business if we get the documents we need. but it can take even longer if there's issues getting the documentation we need. And people a lot of times get really frustrated because they don't understand why it takes so long. But if we run into issues getting documents, it can take a.
I understand that completely. Let me ask you this also. My mind's swirling as you're sitting there talking. For the spouse that is not involved with the business, how do you go about collecting any of this stuff?
Yeah, that's why I'd say if prior to separating, anything you can amicably maybe get a copy of, try to do so, because that's a great question, Lori. Unfortunately, if you're the out spouse, it really depends on how willing your ex is to disclose documents. Divorce brings out the worst in good people, is what we've observed. And, people don't like to disclose. So, what that means is your attorney can get those documents, but it's through subpoenas, it's through depositions, and that all takes time. And attorneys bill in 6-minute increments. So, when you think about that, you think about how much it costs. It does get really expensive just getting access to these documents. So, anything you can do to prepare and to gather it on your own will save you a ton of time and money.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Sometimes in divorces, you don't want to do anything illegal by any means, but sometimes you have to be maybe a little sneaky to, be able to get some things like that. That's a hard spot to be in it.
I would encourage people to that's why having consultation, really multiple attorneys, one, to find the right fit, but to let them know that you may not have access to those documents, because that will help the attorney then figure out the best strategy in navigating your case. Because it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go the litigation route. It just means that they will approach it in the way that's in your best interest to get you those documents in the most efficient manner.
True. And I am not advocating for anyone to go and be sneaky to get these, but I'm just sitting
Right.
here thinking, how would you go about, getting these documents?
Yeah, we don't need like a
I
Watergate
just wanna
scandal
put
on our
that out
hand.
there. Yes, I just
If
wanna
we get
put
somebody
that
with
out
a
there. I am not
flashlight going, no,
advocating
no,
that at
but
all.
if
Yeah,
you are on good terms, well, let me rephrase that. If you're on good terms with your spouse, you're probably not getting a divorce. But
true.
if at least you have the ability to communicate with your spouse, and they're willing to be transparent, right? Because ultimately, this will come out in divorce. It's just, do you do it the easy way or do you do it the hard way?
Right. Good advice. And then you also put down what you wish every divorcing client knew about money. I hear this myself.
Number one, your financial life will be different after divorce. It doesn't mean failure, though. It's just math. Whether you're the out spouse, you're going to have to learn to live differently than probably what you were used to in marriage. And even if you're the earning spouse, you need to recognize that you may end up having to pay spousal support or alimony. If there's children involved, there's child support. It really disrupts the financial normalcy that you're used to in marriage when you go through a divorce. And that is something I think people don't recognize or don't understand. And I think it's very important because you have to accept that your financial life will be different.
That is so true. Once
The
again,
other thing I would say, I mean, that's the big one, especially I experienced it firsthand too. So that's why I know, and I encourage clients and I tell them the same thing, because most people have this assumption that the standard of living during the marriage is going to continue. And I mean, it may over the long term, but initially going through divorce and then thereafter, your life and circumstances are changing. So to expect that. The other thing I would say is that cash flow is greater than net worth. So to really be careful with people as they're considering the money, and especially with settlements, you don't live in your equity. You live on a monthly budget. So you do need to factor in how much cash flow you have, because you don't want to just take assets that are only in equity that aren't liquid, because it's not going to pay the mortgage. It's not going to pay for the electricity or food that you need. So really balancing those settlements, you have to take a look at the cash flow involved. And then the last thing I would mention, because this goes into my craziest divorce story, is that future modifications happen. Meaning, if you, especially with kids, plan for changes, keep good records because it'll make your life easier later, but expect that.
Those are all great practical advice, tips for people to utilize. It's really, really good advice. You have given us a lot to think about. So much. It makes me, I'm not even going through a divorce, and it makes me want to go get my documentations
I know.
in a proper form. Is there anything else winding down? Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you feel like it needs to be said?
I would just say that, first of all, I greatly appreciate you giving me this forum to get this information out there, Lori. I think what you're doing is a really great thing. So I appreciate you so much. For those that would like to contact me, you can go to my firm's website. It's Reagan, spelled REA. The FVL stands for Forensics Valuation Litigation. Our firm also does more than divorce. We do damages calculations. We deal with shareholder disputes. We do fraud investigations. My boss, has his CPA license in 3 states, so he can also do CPA malpractice suits if there's anybody out there that has that on their radar. But we do a lot more even outside of divorce. So that's the last piece I would just mention.
That's great. And I will also put your contact information at the end of the video too for anyone that's watching this. So, well, thank you so much. You have given us a lot of great information. So much. In fact, it's one of these that we probably need to go back and listen to again to be able to make sure we've picked up everything that you said, because you have given some really, really good information. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be with us today.
Well, it's my pleasure. And I thank you as well, Lori.
All right. I will talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The information contained herein is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, please seek an attorney.